We're going to celebrate the remembrance. And you're saying the remembrance of who? The remembrance of somebody who's very, 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 very important in Celtic history. No, I'm not kidding you. He really is. This guy is responsible for the dynasty of the Celtics. And I bet you the majority of you don't even know his name. His name is Charles Edward McCauley. Now, his birthday was March 22nd, back in 1928. Charles Edward McCauley was born March 22nd in St. Louis, Missouri, to Charles James McCauley and Josephine Margaret McCauley. Now, let me get a picture of Mr. McCauley up here on the screen so you can have a good look at his face. Fine looking young man. His parents produced a fine looking child. I'm sure they thought so too. There he is. Charles Edward McCauley, also known as Easy Ed McCauley. Like I said, he was born in St. Louis, March 22nd, 1928. And he attended the St. Louis University High School, where he excelled at basketball. So much so that he found himself highly recruited by the likes of Adolph Rupp at the University of Kentucky and others. Now, Kentucky was one of the, Kentucky, Kansas, one of those hierarchy of college universities of basketball back in the 50s and 60s. And listen, they really wanted this guy. But his mother, yeah, Josephine McCauley, said to him that he could attend any university that he wanted to as long as it was Catholic and located in St. Louis. Well, that sealed the deal. I think there was only one, and that was called the St. Louis University. That's right. Jesuit-run St. Louis University. University of St. Louis, however you want to call it. And then he attended school at the University of St. Louis, or St. Louis University. And in 1948, his junior year, St. Louis University stormed New York City and won the National Invitational Tournament, the NIT, which was then the biggest and most important tournament in the country. And Ed was named the tournament MVP, and he finished college as a two-time consensus first-team All-American in 1948 and 49, and he was called the AP Player of the Year in 1949. Also, at the end of that year, and he finished his college career in 1949, he was drafted and signed by the St. Louis Bombers of the Basketball Association of America League. Now, I don't want to say that Ed was afraid to leave home, but he went from high school to college to professional sports in St. Louis. Didn't leave. I'm not going to say he was a mother's boy. I'm not going to make that guess. I don't know. Okay. But he wanted to stay close to home. Let's just put it like that. So he was signed by the St. Louis Bombers of the Basketball Association of America. But when the BAA merged with the NBL, yeah, there was the NBL, the National Basketball League, to form the NBA in 1950, well, the St. Louis Bombers, they went by the wayside. Yeah, they folded. And the Boston Celtics obtained the rights to his services for the 1950 NBA season. Now, McCauley had a highly decorated career as a Celtic. Really, he came in 1950. In 1951, he wins the most valuable player of the first All-Star game. So McCauley is one of those guys that wherever he goes, he's making a name for himself. Now there he is there with Red Auerbach and Bob Basketball, the Wizard Cousy. That's in the early 50s, could be 51, 52, 53. But he was there. And Red Auerbach with his fast break offense always led the league in scoring. So they were having a great time scoring. And he was doing everything. He was leading the league. Ed was right there leading the league and one of the top scorers every year. But what happened was, well, everything looked good on the outside. It was fantastic. He was leading the Celtics. The Celtics were coming sometimes in second place or third place, but they were always right there. But there were problems inside of his personal life. Now, we have to say that Ed, he was first team All NBA 3 consecutive seasons. Okay, so highly sought after player. But as things started happening with his personal life, because he was married and he had 3 young children, and the youngest child came down with spinal meningitis. Now, Ed was from St. Louis, as we already talked about, and so wasn't his wife. They were from the St. Louis area, so they lived in St. Louis. But in Boston, working in Boston, being a Boston Celtic meant that he was away from home a lot, and at this particular time, his family needed him to be more around. So Ed made a request. He made a request to Red Auerbach and the team owner Walter Brown, see if they could swing a trade to get him to St. Louis. Um, he needed to be closer to home, and this was a critical time. It just so happened that the year is 1956, and there was a young kid named William Fenton Russell that the Boston Celtics head coach, Red Auerbach, had his eye on. Now, the St. Louis Hawks had the second pick of the draft. Auerbach approached St. Louis with an offer they couldn't refuse, that the St. Louis Hawks would draft Russell with the second pick and trade him to Boston for 2 established NBA All-Stars, Ed McCauley and Cliff Hagan, both who are in the Hall of Fame. It was a no-brainer. St. Louis was sure they were getting the better of that deal. The Boston Celtics owner, Walter Brown, then approached the Cincinnati Royals, who had the first pick of the draft, and dissuaded them from drafting Russell by offering them a well, at the time, it was the most payout worthy tour in the winter season. It was called the Ice Capades. And he had part ownership of the Ice Capades, and he would direct the tour to Cincinnati, where they would play there for a number of weeks, I think for a period of 3 or 4 years, packing the house. And it was a cash cow. The Ice Capades were. So he had to talk with them. They agreed. The Ice Capades was guaranteed money, and Cincinnati needed money. As you can tell, there's no longer a team in Cincinnati. They had a hard time attracting a crowd and keeping the crowd. And at the time, as it was then, as it is now, they needed the money. So on April 30th, 1956, the day of the NBA draft, the deal was completed, and Ed McCauley became a St. Louis Hawk. Now, that trade, even though it netted the Boston Celtics, Bill Russell, that trade there propelled the St. Louis Hawks into the NBA championship that very same year. The problem was they would face the team they had made the trade with, the Boston Celtics, with Bill Russell, and the Celtics would win in 7. The next year, the two teams would meet again. This time, the Hawks won. Ed McCauley had finally reached the top. He played 2 more seasons as a player coach before retiring from the NBA, and he is in the NBA's Hall of Fame. I think he's the youngest inductee. He was inducted at the ripe old age of 32, and in retirement, McCauley became a sportscaster for KTVI, a St. Louis television station. But wait, ladies and gentlemen, let me get my face on camera so I can say this. There's more, ladies and gentlemen, because he never cut his ties with Boston. He always had Boston, the Celtics franchise, in his heart and in his mind. He always considered himself a Celtic. The Celtics always had a special place. In fact, so much so, ladies and gentlemen, that his number 22, the number that he wore as a Celtic, is retired. I'm not kidding you. It is retired in the rafters with a number of other Boston Celtics numbers. So that means something. That means Ed McCauley's family. He's a Celtics. And I got to tell you this. I met Ed McCauley. I really did. I met him during the 2007 Celtics draft party, 2007 Celtics draft party. Now, I want you to think about that. At that draft party, something happens. Well, of course, somebody's drafted. And that person who was drafted is traded to the Seattle Supersonics for Ray Allen. That's right. That's what happens at that draft party. Now, I'm there. And, well, it's a fantastic situation. It's a fantastic place. We're all having a good time. And I think I need to explain it a little bit more. Let's go into it. Let's go into it right here. Now, you can see there, and Rick Grossbeck and his partner Steve Paliuka, they're the ones who put it on. And it was fantastic as usual. These guys are unbelievable. I'm there with a friend of mine. That's my daughter. I'm there with my daughter, and he's there with his daughter, Mr. James Clark. We were there, and there's Dana Barrows. We're there with Dana Barrows. So Dana Barrows is gracious enough to take pictures with us, my daughter, and of course me. There I am, much younger, 2007. Here we go. But there I am. And he's not the only one. Took pictures with Bob Cousy. Yes, Bob Cousy was there, Mr. Basketball. And Mr. Tom Heinsohn. Now, Cousy was quiet, but Tom Heinsohn, he was a barrel of laughs. I mean, unbelievable. And Cedric Maxwell was there also. And Cedric Maxwell is a funny guy. He's cracking jokes. Very amiable. And there he is. There's your guy, Mr. McCauley, with my daughter and her friend taking a picture. And there I am with Jojo White. We're there with Jojo White taking pictures. Everybody was nice. Jojo White was one of the nicest people, period. There goes Lucky the Leprechaun. Even he was nice to us. Everybody. I mean, always a well-coordinated event with the Grossbecks. And there are the cheerleaders. The cheerleaders are having a good time with my daughter and her friend. So it was a good time held by all, and we all enjoyed it. That being said, I got to admit to you, I approached him. I approached Ed McCauley because I knew of the trade. Now, when I heard his name, when he introduced himself and he says, I'm Ed McCauley, my friend James didn't know what to think. He was like, never heard of this guy before. But I had heard of the trade. So I asked him, I said, well, Ed, you were the guy who got traded for Bill Russell, you know, and from there on, the Celtics dynasty began. How do you feel about that? Um, do you have any regrets about it? I mean, what do you think? And he said, son, it was one of the best things I have ever done for so many people. Everything turned out well for all involved, and I've never regretted. I've never regretted it for a moment, really. And I was impressed. He was the most amiable guy, the most gracious guy. He thanked us. He thanked us. He said, "Thank you for coming over and talking to me." It's like, you thanking us? I mean, you're Ed McCauley. You're hot. Oh gosh. Anyway, um, so as you see, he took pictures with my daughter and a friend, and actually took pictures with James. But I didn't get I didn't get a picture with Ed because I was the guy taking pictures, so I didn't get the picture with him. I missed out on that, but I didn't miss out on meeting him. In 4 years, on November 8th, 2011, 4 years after that draft, at that event, Charles Edward McCauley passed away. And the human race lost a special person on that day. They really did. This guy was so gracious and he was so nice. And this is the picture I took going away. He just gave me that look. As you can see, he was dressed nice. He looked good. He was nice tan going for a guy from St. Louis. But yeah, yeah, forever Celtic. Thank you very much, Mr. McCauley, because with you, you were the reason why the dynasty occurred. Bill Russell came to Boston because you volunteered. You wanted to get, you needed to get to St. Louis, and everything just turned up right at the right time for everybody. I'm glad you were able to spend time with your family. Thank God for everything that happened with Mr. McCauley there. And I think Boston is in debt to him. The Boston Celtics fans are in debt to him for as long as, well, long as it's the Celtics are a franchise here in Boston. That is my birthday for today. Charles Edward McCauley. Happy birthday on the 22nd.